The third and final film made by Steven Spielberg's animation company, Amblimation, was Balto. This was released in 1995 after Spielberg had founded DreamWorks with Katzenberg. It was also released around the same time as Toy Story, and that's probably the main reason why you may never heard of this movie. It achieved greater critical success than An American Tail 2 and We're Back, but it was still very mixed. This shows by its 50% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, its very average rating of 6.7 on IMDb, and even Siskel and Ebert had their own little time with it.
It had been a straight line on the adventure of it, and it had been done in a different kind of drawing style. It could have been a rousing, a little bit
Nothing
mature.
wrong with the drawing style.
Oh, you even said it so just a few seconds ago. You said it's sketchy. It isn't at the level.
No. You said it was sketchy. I said it wasn't at the level of the Disney
Of course,
stuff.
it isn't fully drawn.
But it's perfectly adequate to tell the story in an entertaining way.
Boy, there's a real recommendation. Adequate.
No, Gene, just listen to me for a second.
I have.
This is a nice little children's adventure movie about a brave dog, and I liked it.
When you have kids of your own, you won't send them to see nice little ones. You'll want quality.
This movie is based very loosely on a true story of sled dogs bringing serum to the town of Nome in 1925 for a diphtheria epidemic, and the story is actually told in flashback. The start and end of the movie have live-action sequences where a grandmother tells her granddaughter the story of how she was saved by Balto and the sled dogs when she was a little girl, and that's when it moves into animation, if that makes any sense. But yeah, they do change things around. Balto in the true story wasn't the actual main dog who pulled the sleigh, and he wasn't even half wolf, which is a character device that the movie uses. There's other things changed too, but at least the whole live action thing makes us believe that maybe this story isn't entirely true, as it's told from old memories made by a child with a vivid imagination. Although one problem I have is that the grandmother kinda looks too young to play the part of what should be someone in the mid to late 70s. Anyway, so when this film moves to animation, we meet Balto, played by Kevin Bacon, who is an outcast because he is half dog and half wolf, and he lives with this Russian snow goose played by Bob Hoskins called Boris. Boris is the comic relief character, and he's actually kind of interesting. He doesn't want to migrate like all the other birds, and he is arrogant yet friendly character. I wish I could say the same thing about Muck and Luck, both played by Phil Collins, of all people, who are the standard duo of dumb, useless comic relief characters. They have one use in a later scene, and that's about it. We also meet Steele, played by Jim Cummings, our generic antagonist, and Jenna, the generic love interest. Okay, they're not too generic, but Steele's motives are kind of contrived. He apparently doesn't want Balto to look better than him because that will hurt his pride. It's not like he wants to take over the world or anything, but he does all this generic antagonist-y stuff. He sends his minions at Balto, tries to make Balto look bad, tries to kill Balto and blame it on someone else. His character becomes really flawed later in the movie when he'd rather Balto not to get praise than protect the humans from death. Am I supposed to believe that he wants attention from the humans but he doesn't really physically care about them? How two-dimensional can he get? Jenna is a love interest, but I don't know, something about Balto and Jenna's love interest seems kind of sweet and not sentimental and cliche, and because there's no singing and dancing musical numbers. It's also interesting to note that this is one of the few 2D animated films of the 90s that didn't have any musical numbers. Even We're Back had that Roll Back the Rock song. Of course it does have an award-bait song at the end, but that doesn't really count. The movie doesn't have any pop culture references as far as I remember, and most of the time it takes itself quite seriously, which I admire. The music is fine, though not as memorable as James Horner's last two outings with Amble Animation. The award-mate song is nice, and I guess it fits the movie well. The animation is nice, and it creates a nice, icy atmosphere. The conflict of the whole diphtheria outbreak I think is a decent one, and how Balto overcomes it I guess sends a good message, but not one I haven't heard before, and in the context of the plot I don't think it makes perfect sense, but well, it's decent. I can't also say that Balto isn't a bland character. I do think though that the main problems with this movie are its shoddy comic relief, its really bad antagonist, and its romance, which while good, seems kind of unnecessary. The movie could have been so much better than it actually was though, and the end result is, while exciting at times, overall pretty bland. But still, I like the movie, and I do recommend it. If you're a 2D animation fan, give it a look. I give Balto a 6.5 out of 10.